I'd like to get your attention here. Before we start our event, I would like to request all of you to keep your phones on silent. Thank you. All right. A warm welcome to all of you as we gather here today for this highly anticipated summit. It is truly an honor to see such a diverse and esteemed audience in attendance. In the rapidly evolving CDP space, Lemnisk's annual half-day summit has become the flagship must-attend event for marketing and digital transformation. Leaders to cut through the clutter and develop an insightful and framework-led approach to capitalizing on customer data. To kick off this summit, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rinku Ghosh, the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Operating Officer of Lemnisk. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Rinku as she takes the stage to deliver the welcome note.
Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you. Let me start with a quick introduction about Lemnisk. So, Lemnisk helps enterprise marketing leaders supercharge their marketing ROI by providing them with a real-time response view into each of their customers and allowing them to tailor one-to-one experiences. Lemnisk is also recognized for its world-class customer data platform-driven real-time personalization and marketing capabilities. We do this while ensuring the highest standards of information security and data privacy. Large enterprises with complex marketing technologies, ecosystem including Adobe or Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Microsoft Dynamics 365 have consistently leveraged Lemnisk to drive better outcomes. Now, all of us here this evening are connected by a common desire and curiosity, which is to understand our customers better and help them get the best possible experience. And there is no better technology in the market today other than a CDP or a customer data platform. But as it often happens with new and exciting innovations, the CDP space too is sometimes rife with confusion, opportunistic pivots, as multiple companies try to reposition themselves. So as Mansi mentioned, Lemnisk and our summits in the past few years have brought the industry leaders together and helped them cut through the clutter. Today's conference too promises to do the same. We have an exciting panel of speakers lined up today. We start with Abhishek Biswal, Business Head at Airtel Digital, in conversation with Subra. Abhishek will talk about what it means to think and innovate at Airtel scale, at a whole new ballgame that requires first principles thinking. We will then have a chat with Subhashish Ghosh, Joint President at Kotak Life, and Sabyasachi Mehta, CEO of Falcro, on how marketing technology and management are becoming inseparable. This will be followed by a panel discussion on crafting your customer data for effective marketing outcomes with Vivek Gupta, Senior Executive Vice President, Bajaj Allianz Life, Sandeep Gambhir, Head Marketing and Digital, ICICI Home Finance, and moderated by Ashirvad Patnaik, BFSI Solutions Lead Data and Analytics from Tech Mahindra. We will then have Subra talking to Girish Kalra, CMO Tata AIA, on balancing marketing technology with branding creativity. We will end the evening with one more panel session titled Powering CX and Engagement with Real-Time Personalization with Apurva Sarkar, Head Marketing at Bandhan Bank, and Akash Srivastav, Head of Growth at LiveSpace. Thank you and look forward to an insightful and learning-filled evening. Now, back to Mansi.
Thank you, Rinku, for that welcome note. With this, I would like to start our event. We would like to commence this event with our first fireside chat. For this, I would like to welcome Abhishek Biswal, Business Head of Airtel Digital, to come onto the stage. Thank you, Abhishek. Abhishek is the business head of Airtel Digital. He has joined Airtel after spending 15 plus years in the several roles across Middle East and India as a product lead, business leader, and entrepreneur in industries spanning construction, travel, real estate, and telecom. Before Airtel, Abhishek worked in companies such as Housing.com and TripVillas. In his past roles, Abhishek has launched global first and cutting-edge B2C, B2B products and has scaled businesses globally across both offline and online channels. At Airtel Digital, Abhishek is responsible for heading businesses of Airtel Ads, Airtel IQ, Wink Music, and Extreme Videos, products for Airtel Digital's investments in advertisement, CPaaS, entertainment, payments, and financial services. Along with him, I would like to welcome our CEO, Subra Krishnan, as the moderator of this chat. Thank you.
So firstly, Abhishek, thanks a lot. Really appreciate your time. I think you flew in from Gurgaon. I think since the time we started interacting, and I've known you for a while now, one of the things that's always struck me is how, when we think of Airtel, and we all know Airtel is this behemoth and it's got this 375 million customers and all of that, and that's just one stat I'm throwing out. But Airtel operates at an entirely different scale. For all practical purposes, you've got one USA that you're serving, right, at any given point in time, plus a bit more actually, right? So first of all, maybe it would help the audience here to understand this entire other scale. Right? When we say Airtel scale, that's a phrase that we can confidently use because it means something. So maybe you could start by helping the audience understand that a little bit.
Sure. No. First of all, thank you for having me over. It's awesome being here and sharing this space with so many great leaders. So Airtel, yes, I think from a number of customers' point of view, is a fairly large enterprise, right? We have in excess of 350 million consumers in our B2C business and about 1 million enterprises in our B2B business, right? I think when we look at the scale at which we manage these customers or we interact with these customers, right? You have to look at it from a number of interactions sort of point of view. And that's where the real scale starts, right? So if I look at our digital footprint, which is all our digital channels, we today talk to about 150 million consumers every month, and this is essentially across our web app. So you have 150 million plus interactions there. We get about 200 million walk-ins across our recharge points, which are essentially a point of sale. We get about 3 million walk-ins into all our experience zones monthly. And so far I was talking about monthly numbers, right? In addition to this, we get about 2 million calls a day at each one of our contact centers now. Now what happens is these are big numbers. The challenge always for us has been each one of these interactions is essentially a cost to the organization. A call sort of costs us about 80 rupees. Now if you look at, and you mentioned US, I wish we had their ARPUs, and we would have been happy doing a third of that customer base. But if you look at our customer base in India, our average ARPU is shy of 200 rupees a month. So if a customer calls our contact center once a month, they eat away all the money that we hope to make from that customer. So it's extremely important for us to understand every interaction, predict every interaction, and also shorten the interaction time that we have, right? Now, this is easier said than done because essentially you're looking at trying and understanding the entire customer history in that little cusp of a call that we get, right? So we are picking up data across our CRMs, across every touch point in the last 7-10 days that the customer may have interacted. Yeah, and understand this, also give enough information to the person answering the call in the first 8-10 seconds to be able to answer the customer query, right? So I think this is where the scale really goes bizarre, right? And imagine you are and this must be happening to all of you, right? You've called one of our contact centers, you've asked for a resolution. Let's say it did not get resolved, yeah? And you then walk into the store closest to your house, maybe 2 days later. Your expectation is, I have spoken to somebody at Airtel. I don't care how the store person does not know about it. Yeah, so just stitching this, the story on the contact center, omni-channel across each of these channels that we have, that makes it really large. And that's the scale we try and solve for. So it's not 350 million. It's essentially if we can solve for the 8-10 interactions per customer per month and stitch that. That's the problem, and that's the scale of work that we're grappling with at Airtel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's this, of course, and you already spoke of ARPU and the competitiveness, which I'll just come to in a minute from now. But I think for the purposes of the audience, it'll also be good if we set a context on the B2B side of things, which is the Airtel Digital and the IQ and Airtel Ads. So if you can talk through that, because that will also give a B2B context. We've only spoken about the B2C side. Let's talk about that, and then I will resume the conversation with the ARPU bit.
Got it. Okay. So I think Airtel Digital is a fairly new concept for Airtel. So we are a 25-year-old company, but the digital arm was set up 5 years ago. Yeah. So, and I'm going to start from there. We essentially looked at what strengths Airtel as an organization has built over 15-20 years, right? And clearly network was a strength. We were one of the largest fiber in the ground company. We were one of the largest radio tower company, because that's the kind of infrastructure we had built, right? And in order to build out a digital business, we actually stepped back to see what strengths we have and what adjacencies we can actually play on those strengths, right? And then really understand if those are viable businesses to be built. Can we build those businesses? Do we have the product know-how? Do we have the GTM know-how? And then can we really extract value from those, right? Now, fast forwarding these 5 years since we started digital, we today have a flourishing entertainment business, which is the Wink for music and Extreme for video. We are the largest CPaaS company in India. CPaaS is our programmable APIs for communication. We are the largest IoT connectivity player in the country. There, the good part is there are only 2 other players, right? So that wasn't too hard. We are also, and this is early, we've also started an ads business, which is primarily an audience monetization business, right? So we started this as a very small experiment on, can we own supply, can we own demand, and can we own our own data, right? So if you connect this to our strengths and adjacencies, we looked at network, which helped us create a CPaaS business. We looked at data, that helped us create an ads business. We looked at distribution, which is again Wink, Extreme, and ads, and payments, which is the last thing saying. So if you look at Airtel, essentially there are 4 pillars, which are our 4 strengths, and all our digital businesses are built as adjacencies to them. Yeah. So I have the fortune of managing these 4 digital businesses.
Fantastic. I think this hopefully gives everyone in the audience a very, very good sense of what you deal with on a day in, day out basis, right? So that's a whole other kind of scale. So this, of course, is the internal side of what you deal with, the sheer scale. But I think you touched upon the industry nature, and I think when you look at telecom now for about 2 decades, it started as a fairly fragmented kind of ecosystem. You could say it's an oligopolistic ecosystem. There are 2 or 3 major players, 2 for all practical purposes. And you spoke of ARPU again, right? So, and ARPU is always like this push and pull. There's always this challenge, right? So, in a competitive, highly competitive environment or industry like this, how do you think customer experience acts as a differentiator? Does it in the first place? And secondly, how do you sort of what kind of strategies do you employ on, let's say, a quarter in, quarter out basis to sort of try and stay ahead of the game and sort of keep innovating on the CX side?
So I think we strongly believe that customer experience is the primary driver of growth, right? And we've seen this because we today command more than 60% of the high value customer in India. Right, so and the reason why we keep calling this high value is it's not prepaid or postpaid. It's just high value customer, somebody who's got a handset which is of high value, someone who's always on, someone who travels, right, has consistency of income. And these are all data points that we collect every day about our customers. I think the reason why we've looked at experience being the enabler, right, and when we talk to our customers, every time you talk to them and you ask them what is your expectation from something like Airtel, and there's one statement that stuck with me, right? A customer once told me that we think of telecom like electricity and water. It should never switch off. If I'm paying my bills, it should just work, right? And imagine when you get home after work and you're hoping to maybe do a Zoom call or maybe watch a movie, and the internet does not work when you get home. Your expectation is as soon as in fact, even before I'm entering my house, my Wi-Fi should be connected to my phone and it should be working. So the fun part is people only call us or people only remember us when we don't work for them. Right? And it's a tough industry to be, right? And we work hard.
I'm guilty of that too, by the way.
and we got to work very hard so that they don't really think of us as something that doesn't work. So in this space, we go to the extent of measuring calls per customer, right? And we take pride in bringing that metric down month on month. What happens is, and for us, customer experience is an obsession. It's not a metric that we just have to move, or there is a team that works for that. So we did 2 things in our organization, right? One is the mindset. So essentially there are only 2 teams in Airtel. There is a team that works for our customer, which is all our front-end teams, whether in B2C or B2B. And the second is everybody who works for the team that works for the customer. So essentially, if there is a customer escalation and our front-end team escalates it, it could be to any one of us, and we will prioritize that over everything else in the day, right? So that's the mindset change that we brought about. The second is a process. And our process was very simple. We broke down the customer life cycle to every interaction, every minute, every time a moment of truth happens, right? And we solve for it. So it's the reason why we had to do this, and it sounds very trivial, but it was very difficult because we were a legacy org. We are not born digital. A lot of our processes were still pen and paper. A lot of our processes were send out an email and get somebody to read the email and then action it. If you don't bring about a cultural change in the organization, it's not easy. And I'm talking about 20,000 employees, 80,000 total people working across the country. So that's the fabric that sort of stitches all of this together.
Fantastic. So I think you spoke of 2 things here. One is when you think of establishing a big change and sort of creating that customer obsession, it starts with the culture, absolutely, right? Then you spoke of process, right? And sort of how do you start there, and maybe some kind of organization structure that supports that process and the obsession-driven mindset that you want to inculcate, right? Now, if you get into the nitty-gritties of things, which is now let's go one level down. I think you touched upon legacy systems and paper processes and things like that. And this is a common refrain. This is something that I keep hearing, and I can assure you that many of the people sitting in the audience would empathize with what you said, that there are legacy systems, paper processes, there are in-house tools, there is some kind of data, unstructured data floating around the organization, all of which, for good or for bad, is important, and they're integral to the process. They've been set over probably 20, 25, 30 years, and they're important. So when you think of crafting change at the next level, right, in terms of the underlying digital aspects, workflows, etc., how do you solve for that? What are some of the things, what are some of the learnings, best practices that you can share there?
Right. So I think, so we had two very large issues, right, when we started. We have multiple businesses. So we have, if you look at our B2C side, we have our mobility business, we have a broadband business, we have a DTH business. Very interestingly, the teams are all different, right? And they have CEOs, they have marketing heads, they have their product and engineering teams. Like 5 years ago, everyone had their own product engineering teams. To the customer, they were still Airtel services. Yeah. But for these people, they only did broadband, or they only did mobility, and they only did DTH. We were fragmented to the extent that if you walk into one of our stores which sells mobility and you ask them, can I also get your broadband business? They will tell you, I'm sorry, we can't solve this query. Can you call 121, which is our contact center? Right? So we were fragmented to that level. So what we did was we said we have to solve this in two ways. One is a customer is an Airtel customer. He or she is no longer a broadband customer or a DTH customer, right? So this needed us to make a large change in how we recognize customers, right? And how we sort of, even our underlying CRMs were separate. Yeah, we had to bring that together and ensure we created one customer database which was available to everybody, right? And this is a massive change, remember. One, it's a lot of customers, but it's also multiple organizations, and they're all regulated, right? So mobility is a regulated organization. Fixed line is a different regulated organization, and there's a different regulator. DTH is a different ministry of regulation, right? We had Airtel Payments Bank, which is another different regulator. So just getting this data to create one customer profile was one job that we undertook. And in order to make sure this happens, we once said, let's create one data lake, which has got all of this data, and we will figure out how to migrate from these multiple spaces, laptops, desktops, servers that we have data on, and bring it to one data lake. Second, we also merged our product and engineering organizations. So we said there will no longer be these verticalized product orgs, and they will all be a horizontal. We will essentially move to a platform and federated audience model where customer data is going to sit at the bottom, right? And each organization can use this data, right? And when they use, they will also have to commit back what they've learned from the data and how they've used it. Now, I'm not very good at this, but it seems like this is how the world does engineering. Yeah. Every time you consume something, you also give feedback on how you've consumed it, right? And what is the outcome of that consumption. This allows you to do better segmentation. This allows you to do better targeting the next time. Yeah. So that's one piece, right? The second thing we did was we said, because as an organization, almost always, every new product is at least 2 channels. So if you want to buy broadband from us, irrespective of the channel you buy broadband, somebody will come home to install it. Yeah. In DTH, similarly, every time you have a fault, you will have to call somebody home. Every time you want a SIM, even if you order this online, somebody will come home to do a KYC. Yeah. So we said we will also have to become omni-channel, which is you can start anywhere and finish anywhere on every journey, whether it's acquisition or experience. Both of these jobs actually created a lot of standardization, both in terms of experience as well as the technology that we use, right? And this has given us some very interesting products. For example, we have something called Airtel Black, which is a product of bundling for our customers, right? And we could have never thought of this product if it wasn't for this consolidation.
So I think what is coming out very clearly is, of course, you had, in fact, in your case, I would say it was even more challenging because, like you rightly said, you had completely different regulators across these different businesses, and you could still bring the data together. And I think one of the big learnings that I would probably call out again in case people did not register it is the notion of active feedback, which is if you consume data, you have to give back to the central sort of pool, so to speak, what is happening. You touched about how the data also started getting used, which is the omni-channel nature of the customer experience itself. How do you sort of ensure this on a day in, day out basis? Because you can understand when there is a very specific workflow like you said, a KYC, right? Or installing broadband at your home. So these are workflows that you can still sort of solve for. But when you have a broader set of customer experiences and you still have to stitch them together with this kind of an underlying CDP, which we've established you have in place, how do you take care of that?
So I think we've simplified some of this, right? And our products are also not very complex. It's like we are essentially in this in a business of need fulfillment. You have the need for a broadband connection, we got to fulfill it, and we want to ensure it works and deliver on any service, right? We have what we've created is a customer flywheel for ourselves. It starts from search to discovery to acquisition of a product to onboarding, experience and complaint management, and eventually the idea is to take every customer and make them a referrer. Yeah, this flywheel essentially means that if we can figure out how a customer progresses from step A to B and then to C, then to D, a large percentage of customers will keep being happy and then become our referrers. Yeah. So what we've done is we've essentially mapped out this customer life cycle across every possible journey and every possible fallout in a decision tree. Yeah. And we keep at it. Right? Every time we have a new use case, we go back to our customer, our CLM, what we call, and we map these journeys out. This becomes what we call our central brain to everything and anything that happens, right? And every feature, every channel, every application will then dip in to see what kind of orchestration is needed for this particular use case. And only then would they go react, right? What happens is you have some large boxes at the bottom, right? You have your customer profile. You have your customer data platform where essentially every trigger comes in and enriches the profile. And you have your journey design, or what I call your order orchestrator, right? Essentially now you have a framework which any order can get personalized for this customer across any channel, right? So it took us some time to understand and abstract out this architecture from what we otherwise have built as what we otherwise call siloed workflows. For example, we used to have this online web page where you can come and drop a lead to get a broadband connection, right? So it's a simple web page. You come and select the broadband connection you want, you put in your telephone number, and you then select the address and the time that you want this broadband to get installed. Now, if you don't move from page 2 to page 3, which is the last page for payment, we have your telephone number, yeah? And if you have not paid for, let's say, up to 5 minutes, we'll send you a message saying, your regular funnel drop-off, right? I'm sure I can see some of you nod. All of us have thought of this, right? And it doesn't seem like rocket science. But what if that customer is your mobility customer also? Yeah? And you also want to send them a recharge message at the same time. What do? Do you want to do that funnel drop-off message? Or do you want to do this recharge message, right? So there's a point of decision making. Fortunately or unfortunately, our engineer who built out the web form integrated with the SMS API and kept sending out the message, right? So he was oblivious. He said, I'm doing a great job. You told me to build out a web page. I also thought of the remarketing flow, right? And I should really get a, at least the monthly award the guy should win. Another engineer said that, listen, I sent out this recharge message and another person is sending a message to the same customer. Now I want my message to be prioritized, so please stop sending out that message. Imagine 200 teams each trying to figure out some workflow to send out a message to that user, right? It breaks. This is what we stopped. We said, a customer cannot get a communication if that communication is not registered in the central framework. So think of a reactive data pipeline where signals keep coming about everything that the customer is doing. Yeah? And you then prioritize what is the next best action for that person, not for the internal business use case. Yeah? And what's very interesting is we found out there are some customers we shouldn't market to because they're having poor experience on their broadband. So I don't want to call a customer and say, can you please buy my DTH connection? And the guy tells me that, listen, your broadband doesn't work. Why the hell will I take another product from you, right? So I think I'm, of course, oversimplifying it, but we've realized that just understanding that moment of truth and taking back what we should have done for this customer has helped us build all this.
Got it. So again, I think there's a very natural flow to what you're saying, because in all of this, let's talk CDP now, because that's what everybody also wants to hear and understand. And how are you planning to leverage a CDP in this entire ecosystem? So two things, and we spoke about this briefly. One is the often build versus buy decision, because I know that Airtel at heart, and I've interacted with so many people now, is at heart an engineering company, and there is this tendency, I will build this, right? And so just talk a little bit about the build versus buy thought process. And the second is, how are you envisioning sort of a CDP sitting in amidst all of this orchestration and sort of one view, a lot of which I know for a fact is already created within Airtel. How do you envision a CDP sort of working here? So
I think, Subra, I think it's a good question, especially to me. If you look at the couple of businesses that I run a CPaaS business, which essentially means I make money every time an enterprise sends out a communication to their own customer. So every time you send out a message to your customer, I make some money. Every time you call your customer, I make some money. Every time you send out WhatsApp to your customer, I make money, right? And so on and so forth. There's another set of business that I run, which is essentially our data monetization business. We have 350 million customers active and another 300 plus million customers who are not with us, but we have enough enriched profiles. We've built social graphs and several points of interest for them. Yeah. So assume I have a workload manager, which is whenever you want to send out a message, you can. I have a set of customers and their data to the extent on these guys are interested in a particular. Abhishek is a foodie. He lives on Golf Course Road in Gurgaon and has recently got paid his salary. Yeah, that is the kind of insight I have. I also know that this person is on his way home from office and is probably hungry. Yeah. Imagine getting all of these signals and storing them somewhere and then building out an enterprise partnership saying, for your set of customers, I can plan communication, I can plan enrichment. Yeah. The center box that can actually bring all of this together is a CDP. So I think it's natural for us to one, understand value and work with you guys, of course, for a product like Lemnisk, which is the heart of orchestration for a lot of this business. So if you notice, when I talked about a place where a workflow is defined and every signal is brought in and stored, and then a decision is made on what to do next, that is essentially a CDP, which we've built at scale for Airtel's use. Yeah, and I think maybe because we didn't meet you early enough, we had to build one on our own. But I think while we appreciate technology, and that's the DNA of the organization, we're very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to build everything. I would rather only focus on building the core strengths that we have. And every little dollar that we get, I would put out a radio network or put out a fiber channel, right, outside. So I think for us, prioritization of where we spend comes first. We are a company that does not have, other companies to fund our losses, right? We essentially have to make all the money that we spend.
Really, you have to make money? Wow.
So I think we are very particular and very clear about where our investments will go in, right? And that means that we will not look at building out every little piece of technology. And even historically, Airtel always has been a partner-first organization. In fact, our founder came up with a model where our entire technology was outsourced to IBM on a partnership model where we had revenue share.
It's a huge deal, I remember. It's a big deal. Yeah.
This was the biggest deal that IBM had globally, ever. Right? So I think for us, we are clear what you can buy for a reasonable cost, don't ever build it. Because it may not be core to your business, and if it's not core, you will never be ahead of the curve in terms of innovation. So build out what is core, platformatize it so that several others can build on top of it. Work with these partners rather than build it yourself. So I think for us, when we met you the first time, I think using Lemnisk technology for a lot of our internal use cases, as well as partnering with you guys for a lot of our enterprise use cases, was a no-brainer.
And I think what struck me also, to be fair, was the absolute clarity that sort of percolated down to some of the product teams with respect to pieces that they wanted to own and sort of build vis-a-vis pieces. They said, okay, this is Lemnisk, right? So I think that clarity of thought was incredible to see, actually, right? So you did us a favor by pitching the CDP and sort of making it clear. I will return the favor. There are a lot of B2B leaders here. So how do you plan to extend all of this? Because I think you've spoken of platformization to me once, and how you view everything that you do at Airtel to be something that you eventually see sort of being made available to sort of all of your B2B customers. So talk a little bit about that. What are the things that you believe your B2B customers, many of them here in this room, can expect this year from Airtel? That's sort of my last question. Yeah.
So I think two parts that we are very actively talking to our customers about. So we are in the connectivity business, and we'll keep doing that, right? And of course, I'm sure we work with a lot of the customers here. I think one is our MarTech piece. I think what we've done over the last 5 years with either a contact center technology or the way that we go to our own customers, which is our internal CLM, and the way we interact with some of these customers across our channels. That's something that we definitely want to share with with the enterprises. And I'll give you a very small example of what you can use these products for. Imagine you're sending out. I'm in Mumbai, so I'm sure we are a BFSI rich base here. A lot of your customers may be, let's say, on international travel. Yeah, and you want to reach out to them for an important message. you try sending out an SMS and it doesn't reach them. For some reason, you try out a call and the person doesn't pick up the call because they're probably on international roaming and you don't want them to pick up the call. You would rather send a WhatsApp message, right? You can use a single API to attempt an SMS. If it doesn't get delivered, we'll attempt a call. If the call doesn't get picked up, we will send out a WhatsApp. Yeah, so essentially, it's an omni-channel orchestration saying if event A does not come as delivery of a particular channel, fire event B, fire event C, etc. Right? So this is something that we want to take to market almost immediately. I think it's a very simple, straightforward product. And you know, by the way, guys, this is a product that we've built with Lemnisk, and it uses their CDP technology. It's a very simple use case where we brought together our CPaaS business, the Lemnisk CDP, you know, for an experience use case. Similarly, you can also look at growth, where we can bring in our audience to enrich a set of customers that you have, and then keep marketing. So, for example, if you have a set of customers who are, let me come back to the same example, international travelers, and you want to help them load Forex in their Forex card or in their account, you can tell us, or you can upload your customer base on the CDP. We will use a clean room tech so that, you know, the data privacy norms are upheld. We will tell you every time they're looking to travel or they've hit the airport, and you can then market a particular product. Right? So I think MarTech is something which is something that we definitely want to work with you guys on. The second product line is essentially our contact center or our voice technology. I think that's something that we've scaled significantly, right? And voice is our bread and butter. We've gone to the extent where we now can deliver a contact center voice product with analytics, with sentiment analytics, with text, voice to text. We will pick out buzzwords in the call that may or may not need to be spoken. And by the way, we can do this for all your SIM cards. So if you have a large fleet of employees which are, you know, your workforce or your last mile workforce, and you want to go to the extent of looking at who they're calling on the call analytics, looking at what is happening on the call, yeah, and even coming up with the action required to do the call better. That's all something that can be done. And I give you a very small example of this product. We used to have, so we have about 8,500 contact center agents today. Just to manage these 8,500 contact center agents, we used to have 300 audit agents who could barge in the call. If the call wasn't, you know, appropriate, or if the customer was angry or something, we today have 0. We have nobody to barge in the call. We do analytics on the fly on the call. We do a sentiment analysis. If we look at either the agent being stressed or the customer being stressed, we mark this to the team leader. Our entire training program is driven by just this product, right? So we're now scaling this on every number that businesses take from us. So, yeah. Fantastic.
I think fantastic to hear your views, Abhishek. I think there's a lot that I'm sure all of you taken away from this session. I hope you're doing good on time. How are you doing time? Doing good on time? Okay. Anyone, if there are any quick questions to Abhishek, we can entertain them. Otherwise, we'll quickly close it. And I think we're behind by about 30 minutes and we can catch up as well.
Now the tough questions will come up now.
Yeah. Hopefully none. Any questions from anyone? Abhishek, yeah, Apurva, please.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you so much. I mean, very interesting insights. I'm not sure if you were with Airtel when they launched the campaign where you could report poor connectivity or poor network, and then they would come and assess if the tower could be set up. Very keen to know how did the backend work there, because I'm sure there is a lot that happened in the backend to make this campaign come alive. While we only saw the front end of it, I'm sure there was like an iceberg, there was about 7 layers of it underneath. So keen to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I think this was, I was there in Airtel. It was one of our toughest projects. Gopal said that this year we want to go down to 0 complaints, right? And that was a vision. We didn't get there. But I mean, we had to go to the extent of prioritizing every complaint and understanding if we could fix it, understanding if this complaint actually. So essentially, what we did was so we have this concept of prioritization for scale or prioritization for value. Yeah. So let's say if you have poor connectivity, you would have call drops. Yeah. And as a customer, you would be unhappy if you have beyond a particular threshold of calls, right? So assume that you're a customer who's having poor connectivity. You're latched on to a tower which has got several such customers who have poor connectivity, right? So we first said, what is the asset class that we can improve, help, to help the maximum set of customers, and we go and change that, right? Next, we said, what can we do in that asset? So first we said, where do we build more towers? Then we said, how can we reorient our current towers? And third, how can we actually go to the extent of solving at your building level, right? So we created a new generation of towers called small cells. And we today have close to 35,000 customers who have contributed their home broadband to become a tower for their building. Right? So it was a massive project where we had to solve for our network. We also had to solve for the last mile customer who could become and we call them superheroes, right? So they essentially solved for their own set of customers or their own community. So that's how we went about it. So we kept prioritizing what asset class to fix when.
Thanks. Any other questions from anyone? Fantastic. Abhishek, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Abhishek, if you could just stay back for a minute. Thank you so much for this interesting conversation. Great. All right. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Subra. We'll move on to our next agenda. Over here, we have an executive exchange where I would like to invite Subhashish Ghosh, the joint president from Kotak Life, on stage, as well as Sabyasachi Mittal, the founder of Fulco, as the moderator of this executive exchange. Please welcome them onto the stage. A little about Subhashish. Subhashish has spent over 3 decades in the BFSI sector, being a valuable member of the Kotak Group. He has spent over 29 years of his esteemed career with them, covering life insurance, corporate finance, treasury, marketing, and retail assets. In an alternate reality, Subhashish would have liked to be either a school teacher teaching English or an economist, a part-time student of history that has not been taught, Indic customs and stories from the Mahabharata. A little about Sabyasachi. He is an alumni from IIMC with a career spanning 27 years with over 20 years as an entrepreneur. He is the founder of IBS Fulco, one of India's leading digital agencies. In his expansive career, Sabyasachi has worked over 100 brands across industries. With over 300 awards, 17 times Agency of the Year, Sabyasachi has demonstrated thought leadership in delivering high-impact campaigns for some of the most iconic brands of the country. Looking forward to this amazing chat.
Thank you. So Subhashish, that bio really, sort of teacher, is that a Bong thing, like Kolkata thing? that you wanted to be a teacher and economist. I think Kolkata produces the best of teachers and economists, right? Everybody in Kolkata thinks they're an economist. So how did it go with you? And why are you here in banking, of all places?
Because there's no jobs in Calcutta.
That is true. That is true. Ask me why I am here.
Same thing. No, actually, you know what? You are a Bengali, I am a Bengali. And you know what happens in Bengali families? You got a lot of pressure to study.
Correct.
We don't own land. Bengalis don't own land. Unlike other people, whatever land was left in East Bengal.
True.
So we don't have any land here. So you have no choice but to study. And that's the family pressure. I think my generation grew up by what your parents wanted you to do and what your grandfather did. So my grandfather was a DSc, that is to say Doctorate of Science in Chemistry, on my father's side. My mother's side, he did his engineering from Leeds University. And we're talking about 100 years ago. 1926, etc. is when they passed. So the entire family history is study, study, study. So no choice. But I hated mathematics. I still don't understand much of it, but I like statistics, which is why economics.
Awesome.
And of course, 3 Bengalis, I don't know how many of you are aware, there are 3 Bengalis who have won Nobel Prize in economics. Conversely, 3 Tambrams have won Nobel Prize in science subjects.
Any Bengalis out there in the audience? Let's keep this a little interactive. I think everybody is very serious. I know we are talking at a CDP event and data is very important, but you know.
This is also data.
Yeah, this is also data. This is a data point. Data can be cut in many ways, as people say, that whichever way you look at data, there is always some insight. So let's come to your journey from wanting to be a teacher to where you are today. And BFSI, I think, is one sector which is seeing a lot of changes in the recent times, right? So as a marketer, how do you see your journey from once wanting to be a teacher to now leading one of the top life insurance brands in the country? How has been this journey?
Okay, actually when I got invited for this ceremony, for this function, I thought there was a mistake. And you'll understand that why. First of all, I don't know anything about marketing, right? I'm a salesperson, hardcore salesperson, as you just heard from I've done treasury, I've done corporate finance, I've done basically institutional sales and some amount of retail sales. But what happens in our group, that is Kotak Mahindra, where I spent nearly 3 decades, Uday's way of holding on to its people is to give new jobs to old people and old jobs to new people. So we have to learn and we are completely confused most of the time because jobs keep changing. So because of that, when the last CMO left, which was about 6 years ago, I was offered that in addition to everything that you are doing, would you also like to head marketing? So that's how I'm sitting in this chair. Trust me, I don't know any 3-letter abbreviations. I have to actually study that. And that's where I am. So don't ask me tough questions.
No, I am not an interviewer and I'm on the other side. I've been your agency. So that's a disclosure that Subhashish has been my client. And this is the first time that he's giving me the impression that he doesn't understand marketing, because when he was trying to select us, he gave me the impression that he knew more about marketing than I did. So that's a job well done. So Subhashish, tell me, I mean, I've worked extensively with Kotak and the way Uday thinks. And I think and it flows from there, he's a person who's obsessed with giving great service to customers.
That's true.
Right, so as joint president of a company in the Kotak group, how important do you see this vision of giving the best to consumers in whatever form and manner that you can across the entire value chain and the entire customer experience for every single customer in the Kotak group?
No, so that's a very important question. See, everybody pays service or lip service to customer service. I don't think like everybody pays lip service to corporate governance. These are normal things, 32 pages of corporate governance, then that guy goes behind bars. So it's very common, nothing new about it. For us, Kotak Life, what we were, when I joined, the company would have 200, 300 employees. When we became a bank in 2003, we just had 2,000 employees. Today we have 1 lakh employees. We didn't have the brand of ICICI, we didn't have the brand of SBI. So the only thing we really had we could do is trust. So one thing in Kotak Life, when we started, we don't have a history, and we were that time not even a retail, we were not a bank. We didn't have that background, we were an NBFC. We didn't have a bank. So the trust was not there. So the only thing that we could do was to give customer service and experience to the client. And the moment of truth in a life insurance company is payment of claim. See, maturity will come much later, 10, 15 years later. But a death claim or a illness claim will come much earlier. So that's the only thing that we thought we will do, is that just pay the claim as fast as possible, as quickly as possible. And since all of us have financial services background, for many of you, you look at a TAT, like 5 days, 10 days, 15 days. But we know that each day causes an interest loss to you. That's because we come from financial services background. So the way we calculate it is, if my claim was to give in to you 10 days later, you would have lost 10 days of bank interest, if nothing else. So we went ahead and gave claims very quickly. 2003, when we became a bank, we became a life insurance company in 2001. 2003, we got the banking license, so 2 years later. And I remember a conversation with Uday, because we were just discussing that, we are like, so many other bank companies have already become banks, already there as banks. So how do you think we can distinguish ourselves? And it's not that Uday said it, but it came out in those days that if we had to succeed in Kotak Bank, what are the three things that we could look at? What are the things that we could look at? And we said these three things. The service of Jet Airways, the trust of HDFC Limited, and the promise of service of Domino's. 30 minutes, otherwise your pizza is free. Jet Airways really set the service standards in the Indian industry in services and hospitality. And in trust factor on the private sector, there was hardly anybody higher than HDFC. True. So we continuously aspired for that. See, we deal with money. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't shine or it doesn't flash or anything of that sort. And in insurance, when you get the money is when you're the weakest. That is to say, either you're not there, so family is getting the money, or you're retiring and you're too old to fight the company back. That if I promise you a 6% return, you actually got 4.5%. You can't fight it back. You're just not there to fight it out. So, for us, the trust of the customer is the most important thing. And I am on all those committees that do that. And I can tell you our protection of PHPC committee, which is protection of customer protection, we take that very, very seriously. I mean, we have no choice, let me put it that way. It's not as if we had two choices. We don't have a choice. In insurance, it's all about the customer, the return that I give, the faster I give on the service, and that's the only way the customer will stay with me. She will go away if she doesn't get good returns or doesn't get a good service. It's as simple as that.
True. And good that you say that. See, I have seen Kotak closely, and it's a brand which has believed in technology immensely. Okay. And over these last 10, 15 years that I have seen the Kotak Group and life, all of that, there seems to be a lot of marketing, traditional marketing, technology, and management all getting conversed together to giving this experience to the customer. Why do you think this has happened? Why do you think Kotak has also imbibed technology in marketing and its overall product offering? Is it because the customer is demanding it, or is it because you believe that a merger of technology and marketing can actually give better service to the customer?
Yes, so the second part is more correct. It's not that we think technology is a fad. Fads will come and go. What is required? Okay, the other thing about Kotak is that we are very cautious about how much money we spend in the return on investment. Very, very cautious about that. We do not want to do experiments that blow up in our face. Mane Kotak mein aap kuch kar do, paisa mat gawao. You do whatever you want, just don't lose the money. That's the culture of Kotak. That's why maybe our banking NPAs are probably one of the lowest in the industry. Our NIMs are one of the highest. So that's what we look at. And how can you get more efficiency other than doing of technology? We don't have a choice in this matter. So once your basic DNA is set, you just follow your DNA. And to that we found that if you harness technology and really take the full use of it, you will really move much better. So Kotak Bank, in fact, during the COVID, just after that, actually got a lot of people. I mean, that was all before the news on Google and Meta and all that's there in the news came up. We got people who worked in USA for many, many years. And we brought them in. For example, the head of our customer experience was doing the same work in Amazon, right? Because our 811 account, I mean, we are very clear that in future, maybe it is Amazon and Google that we'll compete with, not with banks or financial institutions the way we think it is. So you got to think like that. You don't have a choice.
Very interesting. In fact, you mentioned 811.
Yes.
Okay, that was, in Karthi Marshan's words, the first downloadable bank.
Absolutely.
Right? And I have been involved with Kotak at the time of #banking, which was the world's first banking on Twitter. And then recently, Kotak General Insurance launched Meter, which was the first insurance policy with cashback.
Yeah.
And that was also built by us. So I've seen innovation at Kotak at very, very close quarters. But you mentioned also that Kotak is extremely cautious about not losing money. Yet it has been experimentative. It has encouraged employees to experiment with technology, experiment with solutions, done things which were not done by other institutions. In fact, I remember 10 years back in brand track studies, HDFC and ICICI were seen to be up there and Kotak was still seen to be a lala bank. It seems to have changed that in the last 10, 15 odd years. And today in many brand tracks, Kotak is seen to be the tech brand in banking and often competing with fintechs. So talk us a little bit more about this need to support your own employees, to be experimentative, to try new things, be innovative, at the same time stick to the credo of not losing money. So how does that work? How does that culture of experimentation work in Kotak?
Yeah, so people have asked me that question very many times, that why are you for 3 decades in the same organization? The answer is the same. Answer is the same. The culture, frankly speaking, I mean, he's not going to do my appraisal right now, it's just got over. The culture that Uday has built, honestly speaking, I'm telling this to you, is that of you being an entrepreneurial employee. So we've stuck around for 30 years because suppose if I had to run my own company, I would have probably run it similar in the manner that he has. Because he's here, we are here, that's a separate story. But instinctively, we've gotten around people in the company who probably think the same middle class background, same family values, same stick around in good times and bad times. So when you got your back covered, you tend to do the best. And you know the reason why we take challenges is because we know that even if you fail, you will not be dubbed a failure. There's one thing to fail, there's another thing to be dubbed a failure. So which is why we experiment all the time, but at the same point in time, we always think it's our money, not somebody else's money. Therefore, you just put the little bit more extra effort to see that you squeeze the maximum out of the paisa. That's the only reason. I am not able to give you a very complicated answer, frankly speaking. I think it's just that if it was your own company, what you would have done, that's what we are doing, day in, day out.
So tell me, any specific examples that come to your mind from your team at KLI about this spirit of experimentation and what little success or breakthroughs which have come out of that particular ethos of...
So I'll talk about one thing that we've tied up with Lemnisk with. What we've done with them is that a lot of people visit our websites, okay? And they are anonymous. They just come, they come through some source, they come visit our website and move away. What we've tried to do is to try to understand which page of our website they came for. Did they come to buy protection? Did they come to buy child policy? Did they come to buy annuity? So next time they come, we try to approach them with a banner that was where they last left off from. Okay? We try to do browser push notification. If they're given the authority for that, they've signed up for that. We try not to disturb them otherwise. So we are trying to reach out to them. When they're coming back, they would normally get a reminder of why they were there the last time. And so we can pick up the conversation from there on. It's still an experimental stage, still a pilot stage, but last year we had a CTR of 2% of people who have dropped out completely and when they came back. And of course, the number doesn't mean much because it's not in context or anything else. We did about 22 lakhs of premium on that, on which we didn't have to pay anybody anything, no commission.
Right.
So the target that our department has taken is that can we earn a salary from that alone? Whatever is the cost of the department, can we sell that much that the commission that would have otherwise paid an agent, can our department just run from that? So that's one experiment, one example of the experimentation that we've done, which we feel is going to give good results in the future.
Great. So let's take it a little bit forward and say, there is this buzzword about marketing automation and, deploying tech stacks to make sure that everything happens automatically, etc., etc. But let's keep the jargon aside. If we were to look at how you look at implementing, you mentioned what I assume it would be a CDP from Lemnisk. What are the other things that are there in your mind in terms of how you can deploy technology to put all this together? You talked about personalization, which is when the guy comes back, you're able to change the banner and probably help convert better. What are the other things that are there in your mind in terms of what you may want to do? You may not have still done it, but something that
so we're already doing that. We're already doing that. Say from the customer's point of view, we used to receive a lot of we still do receive a lot of customer complaints, okay? And often when people write customer complaints, either we are not able to make out what the person has written, or maybe in one sentence the person has written 3 problems that we're having. So you think you have solved it, but when you go back and check for the NPS, and we take NPS very, very seriously, by the way. We do a transaction NPS on every single transaction that is done by our company. And we do relationship RNPS twice a year. And that's in Kotak Group as a whole, and it goes right up to there. So that's what we are doing for customer, to understand the voice of the customer. We couldn't understand why the person felt dissatisfied even after we felt that we solved the thing. So what we now done is that we filled up a form. That these are the 8 most common, what we have felt is the 8 most common reasons why people complain. So if you think that at least, significant part of the problem is solved, and then there is others. That's one. The second thing is that in our call center, we are finding the number of languages that people are calling in. And now we want to have every one of our communication in 8 of the most common languages. So our website, which we are willing to, which we will develop in the next phase, if you are coming to my site from one of those 8 languages, will automatically be shown to you in that format. So we want to go vernacular and video in a very big way.
What about customer data? You mentioned bits and pieces and the various things that you talked about, and you are doing a pilot using...
Yeah, it's a pilot. Yeah, we've done a pilot.
So,
1 year, last year we've done it.
Now, whenever we speak to a lot of clients about taking customer data and being able to build experiences, solutions, personalizations on top of customer data, one of the first challenges that I've heard across multiple clients is that our customer data sits in various silos.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Right, and getting a unified view of the customer is a challenge. I mean, we heard one session with Airtel just happening that you call the call center and then you go to the store. I mean, it's a real life example. That experience is not always great, right? Now, customer service owns some data, marketing owns some data, various people in the departments own some data. So what are your challenges in getting that unified one view of the customer theoretically the way it's supposed to be? And how does that work at Kotak?
So I'll start at the beginning. We are a 22-year-old company. When we started, how our data comes? It comes through the proposal form that you fill in. That's the first step. You fill in the proposal form. Now, if anybody has bought a life insurance policy, I'm very sure you wouldn't have filled up the form. The form would have been filled up by your agent. Am I right? So it's the agent filling up the form. He probably was just about got your name right. And then everybody in your family has lived till 99 years. Everyone is alive. And there's absolutely no health problem. So it starts with that. The email is processing with the email ID of the agent itself. Himself or herself. Am I right? Yeah. It's resonating. So, contactability, the data itself is incorrect. That's the biggest problem. And the issue with us is, insurance sells for very long periods of time. It's not a product that, you require regularly. You remember in the time of paying the premium. So, your interaction with me, see, one of the reasons why we have not built the app is that a bank you require maybe 5 times a day. You do Google Pay for everything now. But you don't pay your premium 5 times a day. You pay it probably once a year. So who will have one more apps? That's why we haven't developed an app at all. So the problem is we can only correct your data. If you come to me, to my call center, then I can do a pop-up, is your number straight that number. So my biggest problem is the quality of data itself is rather poor.
Right.
Over the period of years, we have put a lot of validations that, we do a check to see the numbers at least a 10-digit. The Gmail is whatever is possible. You don't give a email ID domain that doesn't seem to be existing. Check for it. So the pop-up happens when you fill up the form. Most of our proposals are now filled digitally. So there's a basic health checkup that is happening to get the data right. So that's my biggest problem is the data itself is not correct most of the time. Secondly, you're absolutely right, data lies in various places. And one biggest problem that, today also I was firefighting a problem. Insurance is a very highly regulated industry, as is banking. So a lot of things which other marketeers take for granted, we just can't do. Just to give an example, many marketeers here would live by moment marketing. My moment marketing will be at least 2 days old. Because it takes that much time to get the compliance clearance. Everything, according to my regulator, anything that I show in public domain is an advertisement. Anything. Therefore, it has to go to my compliance. Compliance, first answer is no. CSK has won, so big deal. What's got insurance got to do with it? And by the way, do you know that somebody was fined because he took the name of CSK? By the way. So you spend a lot of energy fighting that. So we've kind of stopped doing moment marketing completely.
No, I know that.
So,
so even if after 2 days, this is anecdotal, nothing to do with CDPs. If after 2 days you still get an approval to post, after you've posted, you have to put another post with all the terms and conditions,
yes,
linkages and disclaimers.
Yes.
So you have moments marketing with disclaimers.
Yes.
So I do understand where you come from.
Secondly is, I can't say my insurance shines better, looks better, cleans your body better. I can't do all that. I have to maintain life for a marketeer is life is very tough. That's why probably they made me sales guy. Because a normal marketer will probably, just leave the company and go away. He can't say it's beautiful. He can't say it's wonderful. He can't say it's the fastest. He cannot use anything. He can just say our claim record is 99.25%. Dash reported IRDA report number so and so. How exciting that is.
So tell me, okay.
So the problem in that also is that sort of get the data. Should I use the data? Can I use the data? Can that data be in public domain? What type of data I should use? That becomes the issue for marketing actually.
Absolutely.
Normally things that you would take for granted. I just give a small example. We had some management trainees joining us. So some bright guy from the HR department said that let them buy some of our policies and we will pay the first premium. We can, first month premium, not even first premium. First month premium, we'll give them an Amazon voucher. They'll pay the first month premium. And everybody clapped and the marketing team, my team itself, said that, yeah, I think we should do it. We gave them a voucher. I was not aware of it. That's empowerment, by the way. So I went and addressed, so I was asked to address that you please talk about you're older than their entire ages put together, yeah? Now they were 30 years old. So you address them, and so I went over there and they said very proudly, now we are giving them, they are also getting introduced. I looked at it and said, you can't do that. Rebating is not allowed. But sir, when we were in Puma, we used to give vouchers to buy any clothes that you want. You're not in Puma, I'm sorry. You're in a life insurance company and you cannot rebate. And like, life ended for them. Then what I'll do? There's nothing.
Make mailers.
Yeah. So those are the problems which are there actually.
Understand. So now, step your imagination outside of Kotak Life Insurance, because then most of the other people here will say, then what are we going to do with data if we can't do anything with it?
No, you can do a lot of things with it.
As seasoned marketers, and because there may be a lot of people from other industries over here, let's assume if you have the data.
I'm making them feel good. Think about it.
Yeah, they will not quit their job and join.
They will not quit the job and join life insurance. Yeah,
absolutely. You've just made yourself less of an attractive employer.
Maybe I got myself job security.
I don't think you need that. But on a serious note, now, in today's world when there is so much of generative AI happening, so much of talk about data and all of that, where is that thin line according to you? And not sticking to KLI specifically, but in general in marketer, as a seasoned professional who've seen it from an analog world to coming to a point where you can't even make out if this is a deep fake or if this creative is actually... by the way, let me just pause that question. Has your agency approached you to say that they will make mid-journey creatives now? Or even that is IRDA banned? So no chat GPT and no mid-journey?
As of now, no.
Good. So at least somebody is safe from communication. But coming back to the question that I have for you, data privacy is the other side of using data for marketing. Where do you see that thin line getting crossed? Not just privacy from an IRDA angle, but privacy from when too much of personalization, of too much of use of data becomes actually an irritation for a client or for a customer, when he feels that no, they're just being too intrusive? What's that line?
So that I completely agree with you. I mean, I was actually really wondering whether my mobile listens to me or not, because Monica, that's my wife, and I were discussing about hats, and I really got a pop-up.
Are you using an Android?
Yes, Android.
Please shift to iPhone.
Okay. But you know what? Apart from that, this rings, I pick up the phone, I talk, it works.
Yeah. You could have an app over there which is listening to all your conversations.
And my view is, what actually, lightheartedly, no disrespect to people who use iPhones.
I knew that was coming.
What actually has iPhone done except to change the back cover and the shifting of the camera? Think about it. Is the delta charged?
We are diverting from the topic. I'll bring you back to
No.
data.
So
I'll
come
bring you
back.
Yeah.
Coming back to that point. I personally think it's very worrisome. I personally think it's very worrisome when too much of you is out there. Too much of you, see, because it's not marketing. Your entire life can get influenced. Your voting pattern can get influenced. The country, I may be sounding scary and outside this topic. You think of it actually all the time, you know, the way I approach marketing. I try not to think what the customer is thinking. I try to think, what if it is me, the customer? If I am the target, what would I like? I would I like? And I can tell you this possibly anecdotal. Anybody from Axis Bank here? Okay, nobody. I was told that when Dr. P.J. Naik took over as the Axis Bank chairman, I mean, he was there for a while and he was really doing my outside view is that really doing an iconic view. Why? He actually stopped the telecalling completely. Because I don't want to be buzzed. I wouldn't like to receive calls from anybody just like that buy this product, take my loan or take the credit card. He completely stopped telecalling. How it worked or didn't work, I don't know. So I am really worried about too much data being out, that every footprint that I leave electronically can be tracked and I can be manipulated, really truly manipulated to behave in a particular manner. I do not know how far it's true, how far it's conspiracy theory, but Cambridge Analytica was supposed to be that only. That I look at my pattern and then try to put Twitter campaigns or reach out to people who will vote or behave, or who can be manipulated to vote or behave in a particular manner. And then that thin line between marketing for the good and pushing a agenda can and will get crossed. So if even Elon Musk is saying, let's stop AI for next 30 days or next 6 months, there could be something in it for all of us to understand and learn.
True. So just summing up, since we are coming towards the end of the 30 minutes that was allocated to us, and I think we are within time. Okay, great. I always like finishing things on time. All the guys who are out there, maybe a lot of them are contemplating using a CDP, making the most use of CDP, using other MarTech platforms, technologies. As, again, a very senior marketing professional, sales and marketing professional, what would be your advice to them in terms of going with technology to transform their marketing process? But what are the things they should keep in mind while going through this? The last point that we just discussed about privacy and everything else. So what is your piece of advice to anyone sitting in this room today who's contemplating moving in with a CDP or a MarTech platform or any of these solutions from your experience? And that really would be the summary of our chat.
Okay, so I'm hardly in a position to give advice to people. But I'll tell you this, I personally believe in CDP. Whatever little I've understood of it, I personally believe in that. Because it's like, again, it's going back to the other thing that we discussed, but it's like understanding my preferences and giving me a solution that I want. Instead of just giving me a whole lot of things and saying, choose this, choose that. See, what does CDP actually does? You want to buy a product. So you research it in Google. Then you go through a few websites, read a few reviews. Then you go through a few websites of the manufacturer, see what are the specifications. Then you go to the distributor and see who's giving you the best credit term or a faster delivery or what and so on. At every step, you're leaving a footprint. And unknowingly, you may have interacted with the brand that you're ultimately buying from for quite a few times during that thing. If they are picking up the information and every time you're going to the website, you're seeing it more personalized, that it is for me, as if the brand is directly talking to me, then you are more likely to go with that brand. Rather than the brand saying, oh, I have this, take it or like it. I think it's very good. It's coming to you and saying, I think we have what you want. So it is addressing, if I'm looking for speed, it's that. It's for battery power, it's that. It's convenience, it is that. And a CDP does probably that. Of course, there is data warehouse and lakes, but that's just data. But if you want to get close to the customer, as of now, I wouldn't know, at least I am not aware of something that could be as powerful as CDP. But having said that, I think, as I told you, we're just scratching the surface. The pilot has gone off well. And let's see, we'll probably do people who drop off on journeys, they come halfway, drop off, maybe get them to pay the renewal premium, that what type of people don't pay or what type of person is paying, or he's paying on the last day of the month, not on the first day of the month. I shouldn't remind him during the month because he's got 1 month to pay the premium from the official due date. Those things, I think, will make it more meaningful. The people don't complain, why are you reminding me so many times? Just one example of that. But yeah, I think at least, I can't talk much in the future, but these next 2-3 years, what I can see, at least we will definitely go to CDP. I can tell you about our company.
Well, Subhashish, I must say that everybody in this room would be very thankful you didn't become an English teacher or an economist for all the views that you shared with us. Thank you so much. I think it was a great pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Subhashish and Sabyasachi. I would like to call Subra to present an appreciation of token for both of you. Thank you once again to both of you. I would like to now move on to our next agenda, for which I would like to call on a panel, which would be speaking on the topic of crafting your customer data for effective marketing outcomes. For this panel discussion, I would like to invite Vivek Gupta, Senior Executive Vice President from Bajaj Allianz Life, and Sandeep Gambhir, Head of Marketing and Digital from ICICI Home Finance. Is also a certified project management expert and design thinking practitioner with expertise in taxation law. A little about Sandeep. Sandeep has spent most of his career at ICICI Group companies across marketing and digital. He has helped set up, grow, and transform marketing and digital capabilities to deliver business value. In his current role, Sandeep is the head of marketing and digital at ICICI Home Finance. He helps structure the marketing, PR, and digital functions from scratch. He has been a pivotal in building the company's digital platform in 6 languages that gave people in 2-tier and 3-tier cities greater access to home loans, gold loans, and fixed deposits. As a moderator of this panel, I would like to welcome Ashwat Patnaik, BFSI Solutions Lead of Data and Analytics from Tech Mahindra. Welcome, Ashwat. Ashwat is the BFSI lead for data and analytics at Tech Mahindra. He has more than a decade of experience in the analytics industry with a specialization in risk analytics and management. He has worked on strategic initiatives of BASEL, CCAR, fraud risk management, and RWA optimization. Looking forward for this great discussion. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pretty sure as seasoned professionals in the industry, all of us are familiar with terms like digital management platforms, customer relationship management systems, customer data platforms, customer 360 hyper-personalization. Of late, these terms have become very important and have gained a lot of traction, whether the conversation is within one's own company or across multiple domains. One thing is for certain, these terms are all built or all revolve around how to effectively use your customer data in probably the optimal or most profitable manner. And that brings us to the topic of a panel discussion for today, crafting your customer data for effective marketing outcome. I'd like to welcome the panel, and without wasting any further time, let's get directly into it. And a very basic and quintessential question for both of our speakers: why so much of a focus on customer data? I think most of us in the room know the answer to this, but it'd be very wise to seek an opinion from the industry leaders.
Thank you for the mic. And before I start, Subhashish, I don't see Subhashish here, but I am having both the Android and Apple phones with me. So from that angle. But very interesting question, actually. It's very basic, but very interesting. Why customer data? We just heard Subhashish talk about, he's paranoid about his footprints being used at multiple places for giving a very different connotation of misusing it. But customer data can actually be used for helping the customer as well, along with the organization. How does that help is personalization, being contextual. Just go back few years back, we used to get similar communication from a company, digital communication, with just the difference being in the name, nothing much more than that. Today it's very, very contextual. Unfortunately for the audience here, there are multiple life insurance players here. There was Subhashish, there is me, Gautam is a Sandeep is a life insurance veteran with ICICI as well. So multiple players about it, but everyone having the same.
When Subhashish is in the room, you cannot call us veterans. Okay.
Yeah, completely. 30 years of experience. And when Subhashish, you were outside the room, I just mentioned that we have both the phones here, Android and Apple. So that is that. So my point on data was it is extremely important, both for the organization as well as the consumer, because things have changed. And I think the earlier panel was talking about people don't look at life insurance as a separate category anymore. They compare it with other products which they purchase. That we were discussing about Airtel in the first panel, and I could resonate so much with them, though the problems are very, very different. Airtel has an ARPU which was mentioned as around only 2,400 per year. We have an ARPU of around 1 lakh per year. The problems are very different, but the solution is the same, having the customer data. So that was the point.
So I'm going to start with the philosophy that we follow, and then go on to tell a story about how we collected data and how that data also was not good enough for us to lead to that experience. So we say practically every organization, Subhashish talk about customer centricity. We say that if you are not data centric, you cannot be customer centric. It's as simple as that. Because data is what is going to lead you to deliver customer centricity, customer experiences. So a quick, again, Subhashish mentioned about NPS. So I took out a story from NPS. So we had a customer who gave us very bad NPS, and I looked at the trail of that customer. The experience was fine. The TAT was good. Then we met that customer, and very interestingly, he said, I took an option to speak to your call center in Hindi. And because he took that option, we delivered all the other stuff to him in Hindi. Now, interestingly, he took that option to speak to our call center in Hindi because he felt that the call center was not up to the mark to respond to him in English. Whereas he cannot actually read much of Hindi. It takes him a lot of time to read Hindi. And I'm sure a lot of us in this room would belong to that kind of a segment. So he chose that option. And we carried forward that option across our customer experiences.
A very considerate customer, I'd say.
So Now, the IVR will play out. So I'm in a home loan business. So we have a, big facility agreement spanning 30, 40 pages that got delivered to him in Hindi. And he obviously didn't understand a word of it. He said, I want that in English. Now, how do you account for, that's a bad experience and that's where the NPS dropped. So how do you account for these kind of, data to be taken as input? That was a convenience factor, but not really a first choice that the customer would pick, and then relay it back across your touch points to the customer. So that's how important data is. That's how, we need to keep mining the data, keep collecting that data for us to be able to relevant to deliver the customer experiences.
I believe there's a bit of a evolutionary process, or you could say an evolutionary view that that's taking place across multiple domains right now. So, very specific to your industry itself, how have you seen marketing strategies change over time in your experience, or what you've seen till now, and what do you think the way forward ideally would be?
If I let Vivek speak first, he'll speak everything. I won't have anything, so I'll take the chance this time. Essentially, when I was, back in life insurance and used to handle the online business, a lot of requests from the customers whenever they used to speak to us say, give it back to me on email. Send me that quote on email. Now, things are changing. As we move here, the customer is saying, now interact with me on WhatsApp. So this is the first move that the customer has made, that whatever interactions I'm having with you, summarize it for me on WhatsApp. Now, this is a big shift that the customer is making, and then the kind of, like we said, we are talking to the customer in various languages, etc. That becomes, again, very important to pick that up from a marketing delivery perspective. You have to be relevant in that particular language to the customer. So, this is how it is changing. The platforms are changing. Earlier, we used to have a lot of eligibility checks available on our website. We are moving that to WhatsApp. So today, if you are my customer, whether you are an FD customer, you can renew your FD without going to my website in 3 steps on WhatsApp. So your FD is up for renewal. You get a WhatsApp saying you want to renew. You say yes. You do OTP authentication, and bang, your FD is renewed. So website is out of the picture here. And same thing is happening with eligibility check, or as we call it in industry, spot sanctions. People don't want to visit websites. They want to have experiences on the platforms they are comfortable with. They don't want to visit websites anymore. So a lot of this is moving to the platforms where customer feels that it is convenient for them. So that's how it is changing for us.
I think one important thread which Sandeep mentioned was about customer wanting to interact in the way the customer wants. If you go back few years, there was only one singular way the organization used to interact. In fact, I still remember in my earlier organization making a slide for some media conference stating traditional means of interaction, and this was not new, but new ways of interaction. And in new ways, what we had, social media, maybe a customer app, something. Things have changed. WhatsApp is one mode. Maybe someone would prefer still an app, though Subhashish mentioned they don't have, because they feel the customer may not be interacting regularly, but may want a customer app, maybe want a bot, maybe want a website. So, so having a presence at a multiple places, and how do you orchestrate that? Giving the same information in a way the customer wants, plus vernacular. I think India has changed over the last few years, and in fact, for just to throw a data point, more than 50% of our business for Bajaj Allianz Life comes from cities beyond top 100. Top 100 when I'm talking about. So that's the data point which is there. So people in locations are which are not big locations, which we call, are buying policies, are investing. And when they do that, they want to converse in a language which is comfortable for them. So digital, vernacular, voice, and one more factor which is changing is everyone is short of time. Everyone wants summarization. Previously, like we were discussing, life insurance is a very regulated entity. So you need to give something when you are buying a policy. You get something called as a benefit illustration. I don't know how many of the attendees here have read through a benefit illustration. It's very difficult. It's a 4-pager, 3-pager, some tables, majority disclaimers. It's difficult for me to also understand sometimes after having spent 19 years there. People can't read that. So you require summarization. Everyone is short of time. So all these things are leading to a lot of changes. And naturally, when, like I mentioned, there is a comparison with other sectors. You compare it with the retail, you compare it with the telecom, where expectation is that a policy may be bought in 3 clicks, which may not be possible in insurance. So all those things are leading to a lot of changes.
A very interesting point you pointed out here, Vivek, that the difference between traditional and modern methods of marketing and all that. Do you also perceive that there has also been a change in the costs associated with it, or like how exactly are companies assessing it within your specific industry right now? Because definitely there will be a cost paradigm shift, for lack of a better term, when you move from traditional to modern approaches.
Completely. There is a lot of change in cost, but we are in a sector where we are not bound by cost exactly so tightly like maybe in Airtel. We were discussing about 80 rupees per call, when your ARPU is 2,400 and 80 rupees, sorry, 200 was monthly, so I'm just making it a yearly. 2,400 is your ARPU and per year, and 80 rupees is per call. Even you get one call, your pretty high number has gone. It's not so tightly bound for us. Life insurance, my average revenue, or you can say an average ticket size, that's what we call it in life insurance, is around 1 lakh rupees per user, per consumer. That's not exactly my revenue because that goes into the investment for the consumer, but that's there. So I really don't mind getting a call. I really don't mind spending a little bit money on digital. What I do mind, and it's very important for me, is having a regular interaction with the customer, because I may be interacting with a life insurance company only once a year, and that too just to pay the premium. So costs are there, but that can be managed. However, what is important is how do I reach out to these customers, and there I may be spending a little lower per user cost to the marketing efforts like CDP. That's the difference which is there.
Your opinion? I'm pretty sure within your
average revenue is basis the total home loans which you give.
Then I'm pretty sure even within the home loan segment, you would see these modern shifts happening from traditional methods. Like there were agents actually doing it, and now it's being done digitally. How do you perceive any cost aspect that has come into play here?
Yes, absolutely. I would say I would for now keep the cost aside and focus again on customer experience, because for us that definitely comes later. It's a complicated journey among all other products. It's a complicated product. The set of document, the kind of information that we seek, it's a huge amount which is being given out, and that's get paid out over multiple interactions. You need to have a comfort on the profile. You need to have a comfort on the kind of property which is being bought, etc. So here, everything plays out from a customer experience point of view rather than, the cost angle at this stage.
Let me go into a bit of some few buzzwords that we hear these days. I'm pretty sure across multiple domains. Machine learning, artificial intelligence. In your view, is it truly a blessing, or is there a curse aspect related as far as customer data is concerned?
I think least said the better. It's still evolving. I would say, just to leave a thought, we say that, in the sea of blessing, maybe there are a few drops which sound like curse. We control those curses through regulation, through self-control, but there's a huge opportunity out there. And, I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the fraternity. We are all excited. We are exploring various ways because we see the kind of benefits that this can bring across the value chain, right from your front line to your customers. So there is an opportunity out there. Yes, there is a word of caution everywhere, which we want to observe. but undoubtedly an opportunity which cannot be missed.
Considering your industry itself, which is very highly regulated, just coming to the same point, how do you
but even though it's regulated, I completely second what Sandeep is saying. It's an opportunity. So see, any technology, you just take any technology you want to take. Today's mobile phones are there. It's a technology. Is it a curse? It's a blessing. Some will say it's a blessing. You got connected everywhere. Someone will say it's a curse. Arey ghar pe bhi phone aa jata hai boss ka. So it's a difficult thing to say. Similarly, AI ML is definitely a blessing. We can say I was one of the first players, one of the first people who created an AI app for customer service, and that was around 6-7 years back when AI was just started. At that moment also, we were contemplating whether we should use it or not. And I can say with my experience of creating the app, if you can control it, if there is a control learning for the bot, excuse me, control learning for the bot, it can be actually very, very conversational for the customer. Just imagine any one of us like to converse with a bot. No, if we know the other person or other side as the bot, we will not be intending to. Just see the usage of IVRS, typical IVRS. People tend to move to a agent online because they feel that their query, the bot will not be able to understand. AI ML actually helps in having a conversational bot. Today, we have created technologies, and actually we are working on around 3-4 different projects where even a voice call is a very conversational with the customer. So AI ML is actually beneficial, and I would urge everyone to actually explore it, if not use it.
Let's get a bit tactical into it. So we are talking a lot about customer data, utilizing it for marketing outcomes. What are the constraints, or you could say challenges, problems involved in harnessing customer data? Like it could be intrinsic to the organization or the sector you're working in, or external. Any views on that?
मैं constraint नहीं बोलूँगा. I won't call them constraints, but this is more from like you said, privacy, infosec point of view. So you need to build guardrails so that the usage of data is as per the consent that you have received from the customer, and it is secure. So to comply with infosec, etc., it takes time. So hence your go live cycles, your production cycles may become longer, but those are important steps. Those are some things which you cannot miss out on. So that's first. So your cycles are longer because you have infosec and privacy related things that you need to comply with, which includes customer consent. The other part is of the we are in the mortgage industry and we collect a lot of data. I would say compared to a lot of industries, we collect a lot of information, and some of this information, like we call it, is in a form of personal discussion with the customer, which gets noted in a Word file, etc. Practically you take the whole history of the customer. What about their family when you go, do this personal discussion? How do you capture this to make this usable at a later date? So this is one cell. So we call it, again, data enrichment. How to use this data, which is being captured in a very unstructured way to make use of it.
Another factor which I would like to mention in this fact, like you mentioned about capturing the enriching the data. We in fact face this problem. We captured a lot of data during interactions, and when customers buy multiple policies, how do you have a system where all the data is put in a single place? That is very important because I'll tell you, 19 years ago, I joined life insurance. My first project was in terms of identifying unique customers. You'll think, इसमें क्या था? ये तो simple है, phone number से कर लो. I'm talking about 19 years back. That project was called Data Gym, and that was ICICI Prudential. And believe me, it's 19 years now, and the biggest problem we face is identifying unique customers. So, how that is there? The reason is the data may not be structured. Even if structured, it is having an organization silos. It's having system silos. How to bring it together? How to have a way where all the data can talk to each other? And I was just going through those screensavers or the videos before the event started. It actually spoke about that, the systems which are not designed to talk to each other. Now how do they talk? Because we are all legacy organization, 20 years plus organizations, systems created at that time. Bajaj Allianz Life has actually started for a project to change the core system. It's 4 years and the project is going on and it will continue for 4 more years. So you can imagine how big these changes are there. Hence, this is one of the challenges or constraint where how you can make the data talk to each other, and especially when the enrichment part also comes in the picture.
Yeah, siloed and data quality issues, I think that's common across all domains. But one thing, because I also come from a BFSI background into the regulatory aspect, so regulatory concerns definitely play a very big role within the BFSI sector if we were to compare it with things like telecom or manufacturing or life sciences. So that definitely is a very big factor that needs to be taken into consideration when
Another thing I want to mention is, the speed at which you go back to cross-sell the customer. Again, 5 years back when I joined Home Finance, the L2D cycle, which you call it, login to disbursement cycle, would be 40 days long, which means that competition had a good window because you can, scrub the scribble and you know that there is a request of home loan that has gone from the customer's side and then you can cross-sell. Now imagine this L2D cycle, which lasted about 40 days, gave us an opportunity. Now that L2D cycle has got crunched to 10 days. That means your speed to go back to the customer has to be much faster for you to be able to make sense of that opportunity. Same thing applies to gold loans, because gold loan is almost like a OTC product. You decide today and you take the gold loan. So how fast you can go back, because that data is available, but how fast you can make use of that data to be able to make that pitch to the customer is again equally critical, and that's where CDP comes in from a role point.
Yeah, one thing I believe is for certain. See, all of these niche and OEM providers providing solutions like CDP or CRM, they are going to be very important for organizations even right now and going forward. In your overall organizational ecosystem, where do these players fit in? What's the plan for them for the forthcoming year? How are they integrated into your network right now? If you could just share some views on them.
With regards to CDP, we have been working with Lemnisk. That's the CDP platform which we have for the last 2 years. We started with a pilot and now it's completely integrated. With tools like CDP and other online tools, last year we could enable a business of around 80 crores for our sales team. Now that's a pretty high business because it's not just online. So what we do with CDP or similar technologies is we also club it with the offline mode. And with the connection of both, enables sales teams to reach out to the customers more contextual, if I have to say. Earlier it used to be like a carpet bombing. You just give the lead, do some analytics at the back end, give the leads to the sales team, and then they reach out to the customer that aapko chahiye kya policy, which were very not the best way to reach out. Today with the same amount or even the less number of people with higher productivity, the CDP helps in connecting the customer. That's how we have been able to do that.
What about the mortgage industry?
Yeah, I think while today I'm in the mortgage industry, but my association with Subra and team dates back to Subra more than 10 years. I guess it was called Vizuri at that point in time. Did some great stuff when it comes to personalization. In fact, since you're mentioning personalization, I would want to bring in Sabya. That's where we did first hyper-personalization with you on Facebook. And I think that time you were called IBS, now it is Fulcro. I see the name as Fulcro. But that was amazing, You had some hack wherein we could send out very personalized, and they used to call it hyper-personalization. And I think he had mentioned TM also at that point in time against hyper-personalization, where we could go back to the customers on Facebook with exact premiums that they had to pay and the date that they were, due. That was the first of its kind. I think Sabya, that was almost like 12, 13 for you may not remember, working. So yeah, so that was yeah. Oh, fabulous. Yeah.
And Claudius also is present here.
Yeah, and so again, a lot of personalization at that time happened with CDP, wherein we used a lot of our own first-party data to, bring back, make, pre-approved offers for the customer and make sure that they do it in one click as a journey. This is almost 10 years back. And today, in mortgage, while demand is pretty well known, fulfillment is pretty well known. This time we had experimented on CDP with the collections bit, because money gets loaned, it has to come back to us. That's where we have used CDP to go back to our customers in a very personalized way so that they connect with their cycles.
Any specific best practices or guidance mechanisms, frameworks, specific to your organization, which help in achieving this overarching goal of effective marketing outcome? What are your thoughts, or what, in your experience, do you feel can contribute to that?
So in our experience, two very, very important points which are there. One is mapping the customer journey or your campaign journey. It's very, very important. There was this discussion about multiple communication going to the customer for different different use cases. So if I can call that, for like Airtel, there was discussion. It was going for maybe a broadband separately, for a recharge separately. How you can have a complete journey mapping so that you can avoid those. That is one important factor. Second is, how do you connect data together, which I spoke about. These are the two important steps before you start on the CDP journey. Because otherwise your journey will be elongated. You may feel the cost for CDP is very high, which is actually not very, very low. And the outcomes will be very substandard in that case. We could, like I mentioned, we could do very high premium enablement through this over the last few years, because we first tackled these cases and then we went ahead with that. So that's some of the learnings.
No best practices for us. I think we say, just follow first principles when it comes to, using CDP, because these best practices keeps changing. The context of the customer keeps changing. Don't get fixated with any thoughts. Keep yourself agile and flexible. So no best practices, but follow first principles.
And I believe the more collaborative it becomes within the domain across multiple domains, pretty sure some dissemination of information or ideas could further take place in order to help achieve this marketing outcome in the best possible manner. Do we have any questions for our panel? That brings me to the end. I would like to thank our panel as well as our audience. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just request the three of you to stay back while Subra presents the token of appreciation. Thank you. I hope everyone is having a great time this evening. We've had some really interesting conversations going on. And now let me take this moment to move to our final panel discussion, which will be on the topic of powering CX and engagement with real-time personalization. Personally, one of my favorite topics. For this, I would like to call on stage Apurva Srichar, Head of Marketing from Bandhan Bank, and Akash Srivastava, Head of Growth Marketing from LiveSpace. Apurva is the head of marketing at Bandhan Bank. He has over 18 years of experience in marketing with a demonstrated ability at managing and leading the marketing functions in diverse industries such as durables, FMCG, credit cards, life insurance, and banking. He has a track record of driving effective and award-winning marketing programs and has led many marketing deliverables, including marketing strategies, brand building through internal alignment of organization, market development, driving brands awareness and familiarity through sponsorship. He is quite passionate about design thinking and is recognized as an objective-driven professional, adaptive, result-oriented, dependable leader, and a profession with high standards of ethics. Welcome aboard. A little about Akash. He is the head of growth at LiveSpace and leads the company's performance marketing function. In his role, he is focused on building and marketing innovative consumer web and mobile products catering to LiveSpace's target audience, that is homeowners. Akash specializes in rapidly improving consumer funnel metrics right from customer acquisition and engagement to conversion and retention. With over 10 years of entrepreneurial experience and over 5 years of web technology development experience, he is equipped with the unique ability to collaborate with tech, product, and business development teams to bring exponential growth. Along with Apurv and Akash, I would like to invite Subra as the moderator of this panel.
Thanks, Akash. Thanks, Apurva, for being here. I think we have the rather onerous task of standing between drinks and the evening. So we will try to keep it as engaging. I think we have seen in the first few sessions, I think you joined us a little late. So we saw telco, we've seen mortgage, we've seen life insurance. Now we are seeing home interiors and banking, right? So these are two now new industries. And if there's one thing we've learned across the sessions, it is that every industry's context is unique. When we think in terms of something like real-time personalization or capturing customer data and leveraging it, it's very, very different. So let's set some context for the audience to begin with. So let's talk in terms of your industry and what real-time personalization means in the context of your industry. So maybe Akash, you could go first and Apurva next.
For us, right, we are, as a startup, right, which is in rapid growing stage, right. So essentially personalization right now, and we are still in very early stage of basically personalization, right. But we have kept our targets for, next 6 months, right, where we have to reduce our customer acquisition costs, right. So there basically, step by step what we want to achieve is that basically how do we improve our conversions, right. So essentially we are getting traffic across different channels, etc. So, and most of the conversion rate optimization activities have been taken care of, right. So essentially now next big thing for us is looking at how do we personalize, right, improve our customer experience, improve customer engagement, right, to bring in better conversions, thereby reducing our costs. That's one. Second aspect of it is that customer right now engages with us across different channels. So there basically we are looking at how do we optimize our basically interaction with customers on his basically preferred channels. So essentially we right now generate close to around 20% of our leads generate through WhatsApp. There is around basically 80% of around 60% of leads which come through website lead generation, and then there is another 20% which comes through basically phones, right. So there basically we want to give right now options to customer, personalize different communication channels, thereby reducing our CACs.
So I think what is also becoming clear, and I'll just come to you, Apurva, is that a lot of it is led with a very specific, and as we often see in online retail, is led with a very specific CAC objective, right? So CAC is like an overarching and very, very strong ROI metric that you always have in mind.
Absolutely, right? With the current market conditions, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Apurva, coming to you then. So let's maybe set some context for you in terms of what real-time personalization means in the context of, let's say, Bandhan Bank and broadly banking in general.
Sure. Thanks, Shubhra. So note to self and note to everyone, when the organizers of a panel discussion ask you for a profile, please send it, otherwise your LinkedIn profile would be read out and it'll be very embarrassing. So all of you are carrying mobile phones, right? Just pick up your mobile phone. Do that right now, please. Go to your messages and see the last 10 messages that you would have received from non-individuals, from businesses. How many of them end up saying, dear customer? Majority would say, dear customer, right? And these are businesses that you are actually dealing with. They have all your information, okay? Second, there could be also another example of a business saying, dear, your full name. That's what you know me as, right? I'm not Apurva, I'm Apurva Ranjan Sarkar for a bank that just sent me a message in the afternoon saying my KYC was due. So, personalization, whether be it bank or any business, starts by really understanding the customer. And today, unfortunately, we've been hearing a lot of businesses speak since the beginning of this session about how we need to drive personalization. But I don't think there are too many businesses that are getting it right, even from a basic standpoint of how do you address the customer. Okay? From a banking point of view, I think the scope is immense, but we are not even scratching the surface. And majority of reasons for that is because of the legacy systems that we carry. And therefore, the data collection is from sources which do not understand each other's languages. Getting a one view of the customer becomes even more complex. And the most important thing, and we've seen that in last 3 days has been really a fiesta for all the negative souls on social media, the immense pressure of conversions, right? So you put the customer behind and you bring forth what you want to do. And as soon as you put yourself ahead of the customer, no personalization can work, no business can work. It'll just be for the sake of numbers. It will not really be customer-centric. The whole objective of personalization, which is to drive customer centricity and therefore the experience, goes for a toss. So coming back, with banking, it's the legacy systems that are a problem. The second problem is that there are sources of data that don't understand each other's languages. And the third is, as in the case of Airtel, in the space of about 10 minutes, you'll get 3 messages from the same bank about 3 different things that you can do, right? So the governance of communication, how much, to who, and how frequently, that I think is the third challenge that needs to be addressed for banks to get there. But the bottom line is that we are still not even scratching the surface, which is good news for Lemnisk, for you, also for Sabushachi. There is a lot to do, and there is very little that we have done so far.
So this sets the tone nicely. So essentially, if we now are at ground zero, right, and we now need to get to a point where we start with, let's say, basic personalization, like you said, let's stop saying dear customer and say dear Apurva and dear Akash, that's one basic. And then you can sort of build from there and then get to a point where you can optimize for CAC and things like that. So in this journey where you're sort of going through this myriad of possibilities, right, it would be great to understand 2 things. One is, what kind of a framework can you use to understand what data is important, what data is not, right? That is one aspect of it, right? Like obviously Apurva being the most basic data point to the language, and I think Sandeep and the others were covering that, and all of that comes into the play, right? And the other aspect of it is, how do you actually go about collecting it in a consistent, clean manner, right? So what data and how do you collect it? So when you think from these 2 perspectives, what are some of the challenges you faced, and what are some best practices that you could probably share with the audience here? Apurva, maybe you can go first this time.
Sure. So, fortunately for a bank, there is immense data that the customer himself or herself generates over time, right? And it's not just because of transactions, it's also because of the visits, etc. And therefore, the ways in which data can be collected have to be robust. So for instance, if there is a walk-in into the branch, do you have the right CRM solution to actually capture the data that, there is a walk-in by this customer in the branch? Forget about just walk-in by the customer. If there is a third person who is coming in and it is actually a bearer, we call them bearer. So if a bearer is walking in, is there a way of actually figuring out that the bearer comes for this customer? That means the customer himself or herself does not have the time to visit the branch. So what are the kinds of data that you can pick up from the various points of interaction? That is very important. Transaction data is getting captured, but even within transaction data, how granular can the data be, right? And somewhere in the backdrop resides, let's say, a data lake, where you can have all kinds of unstructured data on which you can then create models to figure out really what each individual customer is about, right? So that's one. Second, with third-party cookies, sort of seeing their way out soon, how is it that we can use first-party data anonymously as well? Because there's been a large discussion about privacy, which we'll come to possibly in the later half of this discussion. How do you therefore pick up anonymous data from the various data sources that are first-party data sources, be it through the various social media channels or for your website, etc. And the most important part that a CDP brings forth is how do you then put the data together to create that persona of the customer, right? So collection of data can happen through a variety of sources for banks. The most important is transaction data, because that is the basis on which you can actually drive a lot of personalization. The other sources, if they can come together, and thankfully we have tools like Lemnisk today, it just helps put all of them together and create that one view.
Akash?
Yeah. So for basically for us is, definitely data collection and data validation, right? It's a journey for us, right? Because once, there are so many systems, there are so many channels, right? So essentially collecting this data from these channels, and then whenever you're looking for a journey, designing a journey, right? So you will find out that you are not collecting a particular piece of data, or basically data which is coming is kind of wrong, right? So that's a time-taking process, laborious process, right? But that needs to be done essentially to basically get the fruits of personalization, right? So that is something which we are right now, and essentially we had a CDP system 2 years back, right? But essentially that's something we are trying to cover up, that we cover every single piece of data which is coming to our system. And that's well validated, and that's a correct data, right? Coming to, what was your second part of question?
So one is what data to collect, but the other is sort of like you spoke of validation challenges, etc., or the relevance of this. So what are some of the challenges that that you've seen in sort of collecting and all that?
So this is the part of challenge, right? And probably next part was your framework, right? So essentially framework which we are looking at again is on the impact side, right? So basically what kind of impact certain journeys probably will create in the system. And there basically we do a lot of, besides data, right? Inferring what data is saying, right? Is it correct? Is it passing the gut check, right? So what we call in our basically with our team, right? That many times there are certain conclusions which doesn't pass the gut check, right? So essentially there we then have multiple data points to just validate that our conclusions or hypothesis which we have brought in is correct or not, right? And that's where basically then we come back that, this particular implementation will create certain impact, right? And that's something which is very important, being a startup, being a fast-growing startup, right? If impacts are not created, then that goes to basically that whole effort goes to dustbin, right? And then you start prioritizing the other efforts, right? There are n number of things which are to be done, right? So we have to make absolutely sure that if we are doing three experiments or three things, right? One creates the impact. And that's where basically we do this all data validations and impact analysis.
I think that the aspect of triangulation that you called out is definitely a very interesting one, that where you use multiple ways to sort of validate data and assess its potential impact, right?
Right.
So if you can, and maybe you may not want to share, or if you can, if you could pick one specific example, if we get down to the nitty-gritties, like one example where you felt that you homed into a variable or a personalization aspect of the customer which you found was relevant. Can you walk us through an example?
See, personalization aspect, I mean, for us, anyway, because we are there in like 40 plus cities in India, right? Singapore. So one of the biggest right now personalization aspect which is there, right, is creating basically trust and connection with customers across these cities, right? So there is geolocation sensitivities, right? Cultural sensitivities. So there basically we have seen our basically, and which we are trying to implement, right? So we have not yet implemented that, but we are bullish about it because what we have seen is on our paid side of campaigns, right? We have seen this vernacular advertisements playing a big role, right? Or localization of basically the communication, right, has played a big role, right? So that's where we feel, and we are bullish about that. If we are localizing the content on our pages, will basically deliver great results for us.
So Apurva, maybe so jumping to you now, if you can talk a little bit about, like for example, obviously, I think with Bandhan, we can say we're sort of embarking on this journey, right? So obviously, you would have thought a little further ahead. We are talking of a few things that you want to do now, but at the same time, there is a path that you're envisioning in terms of the journey you want to undertake. Talk us through what that will look like. I think one of the things that people often ask me when they talk about real-time personalization, CDP, etc., is how do you get started and how do you make sort of ongoing progress, right? So talk a little bit about that, because I think you would have spent some time thinking about that.
So I think, Shubha, the right start point would be, one of the biggest challenges about getting into something like a CDP for various organizations is that there is no fixed route that can be taken, because it's only upon discovery that you can decide how do you want to go forward with it. And therefore, there are no benchmarks of the kind of expenses or a cost-benefit analysis that can actually be applied saying, itna to milega hi, right? Unfortunately, with the lack of that, the buy-in within the decision-making circle becomes a little difficult. And therefore, what you have to really go for are the low-hanging fruits, at least in our case. Go for the low-hanging fruits where the effort will be minimal, where the expense would be also minimal, but at the same time, there is some movement that can actually be displayed, saying that this helped us achieve X. Now, with that in place, you can then start building on that experience by adding a few more lines which you believe can quickly give you results. So, in a time when, as we were talking about pizza, when pizza reaches you in less than 30 minutes, results from new tools, everyone expects to come very quickly, right? The patience is not there anymore. And mostly tools of, new age tools are in traditional organizations looked at as a remedy for what offline is not able to deliver, right? And if you take time in delivering those results, it just establishes the fact that isse kuch hoga nahi, right? So therefore, you start with the low-hanging fruit, which is possibly the most cost-effective and also does not require too much effort in implementation. You show results from that, and then you keep adding lines. Talking about future, I think for a sector like banking, it is the entire lifetime of the customer that we can be with her and create value at various points in time through various things that we can provide.
Banking is very unique that way, actually.
Exactly. So, for those who have discerning parents and who open kids' accounts, it starts even before 18, right? And it goes on till the time possibly you are breathing your last, okay? So, how is it that we can define the customer journey so granularly that we are able to add value to what the customer is looking for at various points in time? I think that is the end goal of any personalization, or any customer-oriented banking institute, right? And we are far away from there. We're really far away from there. Because if you actually look at the largest banks in the country, I don't think there has been a concerted effort to put together a customer journey map. And every line of business is doing its own work, right? So the customer is at the back end, the business numbers are in the front end, and I think that is where the challenge happens. So, if you look at it, say, by the time I retire, probably, still some time to go, if I was in the banking industry, I would want to make that impact by bringing in the concept of CLTV in letter and spirit. I think the spirit is still missing, which needs to be done through the various discussions that we've seen in the evening.
Got it. Akash, I think just feeding off of what Apurva was saying, that banking, of course, offers this sort of unique relationship-oriented a possibility with the customer, right? That starting from, like he said, from somebody could be a child all the way through retirement, old age, etc. Live space and on home furnishing wouldn't work like that, right? So you have probably distinct opportunities, moments, but they are not really continuous in nature, right? So when you take that perspective, but there are enough opportunities, right? As your ads themselves show, there are enough opportunities, right? So how do you assess that? How do you go about thinking about how you work with existing customers? Can you talk a little bit about that? Like people with whom you might already have some form of initial business established, but presumably that is not one time in nature. You want to keep expanding. So how do you think about that?
So essentially, see, any which ways right now, customer lifespan right now is 7 to 10 years, right? When on an average, where they come for basically home interiors requirement, right? So right now, essentially, we are not looking at that particularly, right? But what we are looking at is while customer has requirement of home interiors, right? So how do we capitalize on the opportunity, right? And customer is exploited with choices, right? It's becoming more and more demanding, right? So there basically we are trying to optimize our journey, right? Trying to understand customer more, personalizing our basically funnel, optimizing our funnel so as to get better conversions, right? So I mean that starts right from customer who has interacted with us on website right from the first time, right? So they are capturing our data, right? Right from which campaign he has come, which channel he has come, right? What he or she has interacted on the website, right? So that's basically first interaction, and there basically we have started doing a customer profiling, and that's where we are trying to optimize our funnel so as to impart best of customer experience and basically our goal of getting better conversions.
Got it. Apurva, this is a topic that you started touching upon, but we couldn't sort of delve deeper at that point. Is you spoke about data security and privacy, especially, right? So let's spend a moment in the context of that. So, how is Bandhan Bank looking at this? Right, being probably having more traditional outlook, roots, etc. It might be probably even more conservative than the average bank. Is it fair to say that? And in an environment like this, how do you, as somebody who wants to become more digital, more personalized, how do you sort of balance that?
So the one good thing in the evening has been that you've invited a lot of people from the BFSI sector, and no regulator in the BFSI sector is lenient. Okay, you could continue debating whether IRDAI is stricter than SEBI or RBI is stricter than both of them, but the fact that there are certain guidelines that have to be followed when you are in this business. See, there are two parts to this, Shubhra. One is what is allowed and the judgment of where to draw the line. A lot of times things could be allowed by the regulations, but as a business you have to take a call, where do I draw the line, right? As I said, banking as a business, we collect a lot of information. Even when you're opening an account, there's a lot of information that is collected on the form. Same with life insurance, same with any other financial product that you would be going for, home loan, etc. Even more stringent, right? In terms of the amount of data that you collect. So we already are collecting enough data, and that is mandated also to a large extent because that is the information you need to get the customer on board, and that is required, right? The other data that you collect, which is not necessary for the banking operation point of view. For example, I'm tracking the customer on my website. Is that necessary? It is not necessary, right? Tomorrow, if I don't collect the data, will RBI pull me up saying, why haven't you done that? No, they possibly don't even know what is first-party data. A lot of the people who would come and audit us, right? So, how much to collect is the first question. Does the user know you're going to collect data? And third is, how much of it will you use for the customer's benefit and not the business's benefit? I think these three are the most important things one has to consider. Take an example from the US. If you see, I think one of the leaders in personalization has been Zappos, right? So if you see how Zappos has done is that they have actually taken permission from the customers, and more than 70% of their customers have said, yes, I am willing to share my data with you if you're going to give me an experience, right? I think that is where we need to be. That's a highly matured space to be in. And we are far from it. More so that it's the malpractice that has happened in this entire system. I bank with a lot of banks because every place I've worked there's a salary account with some other bank, right? So one of the large banks that I bank with, they call me every day at least twice with the same thing. Personal loan chahiye? Aur koi loan chahiye? Right? Where is the personalization? I have never inquired about personal loans. They're just looking at my bank account. They're saying, paisa nahi hai iske paas, isko paisa dena hoga, right? And therefore, they are possibly doing that. Or when my credit card balance is too high, they would say, sir, EMI kara lijiye. Just because my balance is too high, I wouldn't want to do an EMI, right? So we are not using the data right as well. We are just, it's spray painting, it's carpet bombing. You're trying to do whatever to drive business. The focus is to get numbers. Until such time the focus is numbers, I'm repeating this, you will not get customer experience. But what is more useful is to know that when you drive customer experience, you get sustained numbers. It is not point in time. I think that is what we need to realize. And, privacy is a very, very sensitive issue. Right? We've talked about Apple versus Android. You pick up a smartphone, you're not private. As simple as that, right? So today, if you ask, and Sam Altman is here, ChatGPT is here, and I think one of the topics would be generative AI. The data being collected is so much, and it is being processed so much that you don't know where your data resides and how it is being used, right? I was meeting up with Arundhati Bhattacharya just about a couple of weeks back, and she said that Jeff Bezos has once in a meeting where she was a part of it, had said that we don't know what AI will do because it is learning in a manner that we never envisaged. It has a life of its own, right? So privacy is important. Individuals, the information that needs to be used to make his or her life better should be used in that manner. Everything else needs to be just sieved.
Got it. I think you naturally move to the sort of last set of questions I wanted to ask you, which is if you look at the pace at which new technologies, new possibilities are emerging, and I think ChatGPT and generative AI being sort of one of them, right? And lastly, if you look at it, it was, you had the metaverse, and I'm sure LiveSpace would have thought about it at some level. You had the blockchain coming through, and you spoke of trust and how do you establish trust. So when you have all of these kinds of technologies coming in, some of which impact the customer, some of which don't, what is a framework that you can use to assess impact, right? And the second is, how would you suggest to everybody here in the audience that they stay abreast of some of these possibilities in terms of assessing their impact? I'll go with you first.
Okay. So, essentially, I mean, see, on this framework would be same, right? That in your customer journey, right? Essentially, whatever the new technology is coming in, generative AI, right? So essentially, is it improving customer experience, engagement, right? And basically improving the customer funnel, right? So that's the basic principle which we would be looking at. And basically on technology side, right? So there are exciting things happening, right? But essentially, I would say wait, watch, right? Essentially, don't burn your fingers. Don't romanticize a lot on things, right? So that has been my principle, yes. Right? So essentially, maybe, I mean, if you burn fingers, again, I'm sounding a little cliched, right? But then we don't have many chances, right? So be watchful, right? And yeah, look at different use cases which are happening across with different technologies, and probably start implementing and experimenting on that.
Got it. So essentially, wait and watch, don't burn your fingers sort of approach, and then see where it goes from there. Apurva?
Yeah, so I think we have to distinguish between what really has potential and what is the next shiny ball. Right? There'll be a lot of shiny balls, and it'll come right at your faces. So you have to be really mature. While these are all new developments, one has to look at business and what is the sense a new development makes for the business is what is most important to assess before you even start working on it, right? A lot of companies got onto the metaverse, and with no disrespect to what they've tried to, I think in trying to do what they wanted, they've reached somewhere better than what they were earlier, right? They may not have succeeded in doing what they wanted to, but they got onto the metaverse before even knowing what it would entail, right? I don't think every company has the wherewithal, either from a resource point of view of human resources or money, to keep investing in every shiny new ball. So you have to really figure out what will add value, and therefore go after that. And for the ones that you're a little unsure about, I think you have to keep a distance from them and watch them mature.
Fantastic. I think with that, we come to the conclusion of the panel. Thank you very much, Apurva and Akash, for joining us today. Thank you. And by extension, we also, I think, Mansi, come to the end of the yes. evening as well. Yeah.
We are. So thank you, Akash and Apurva. If I could quickly just call Rinko onto the stage to present the appreciation of token to both of them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we draw near to the end of this remarkable summit event, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude and, to all of our attendees for gracing their presence today, as well as extend my heartfelt thanks to all of our esteemed speakers and panelists who have entitled us with their profound knowledge and expertise. Now, it is my great pleasure to announce that the floor is open for dinner and drinks, a great time for all of us to network, unwind, and of course, relax from our busy day. I do look forward to seeing all of you next year and continue working with all of you for the coming time. With this, I am Mansi Mishra. It was a pleasure hosting you all. Have a great evening. Thank you.